less cold compared with Tuesday, but with a stronger breeze, it might feel just as chilly. Then the breeze drops out on Wednesday night with clear skies for many. It's going to be another frosty night widely. Once again, there'll be some icy patches around first thing Thursday, and temperatures across the country away from coastal areas a degree or two below freezing. But into Thursday morning, we've got an area of cloud and light rain pushing into Cornwall. That's just brushing the southwest, and there'll be further sleet and snow showers into the north of Scotland, along with a brisk wind from the north. But in between, actually for many, it's a fine day on Thursday. Sunny spells, but still feeling quite chilly. Friday brings thicker cloud into the west, but also we'll see milder air spreading.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join me, Laurence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Good evening, friends. It's 8 o'clock and I'm Laurence Fox. Tonight, I will be discussing whether the regime is denying us our right to protest, or are they just benevolently protecting us from too much disruption owing to a constant stream of people falling down in the street suffering from climate turmoil, stopping paramedics from doing their job if they're not on strike, or gluing their faces to the tarmac in order to save the planet from the sun monster whilst wearing hemp socks in Crocs. Then, I'm going to help people stop being afraid of the world ending and finding their own way of protecting your own little world in a way that may actually improve our collective mental health. And finally, David James Bond Starkey is here to talk about the butchering of our Constitution. But first, the news with the wonderful Polly Middlehurst.
Laurence, thank you. Good evening to you. Our top stories on GB News. February could be hit by mass disruption as several industries, including schools, universities, the rail network and even Westminster, are all planning to go on strike. Train drivers with the RMT and ASLEF unions will be striking on the 1st and 3rd of February in a long-running dispute over jobs, pay and conditions. The action coincides with 100,000 civil servants walking off the job, and meanwhile more than 70,000 university staff in the University and College Union will stage the first of 18 days of their action, and teachers as well in the National Education Union have all voted to strike for 7 days in February and March in their dispute over pay. Well, the other big story on GB News tonight, the Home Secretary says the independent inquiry looking into the police officer who murdered Sarah Everard will also consider the crimes of former Met Police officer David Carrick. The Home Office has launched a review of police standards to make sure officers who are not fit to serve the public can be sacked. That comes after the former Met officer pleaded guilty to 49 offences, including dozens of rapes over an 18-year period. He was sacked today by the force at a misconduct hearing held in his absence. Well, speaking in the Commons earlier on today, Suella Braverman said police culture had to change.
This case will rightly throw a spotlight once again on women's safety. No one should suffer abuse or feel frightened or harassed, whether they are at home, out and about, or online. We are taking concerted action to prevent violence against women, support victims and survivors, relentlessly pursue perpetrators and strengthen the system as a whole.
Now, the Scottish Secretary today defended the UK government's move to block Holyrood's controversial gender bill reforms. It's the first time Westminster's made an order under the Scotland Act to prevent a law from Scottish Parliament going to royal assent across the UK. Alistair Jack says the reasoning behind the move was that Holyrood's gender bill would undermine equality laws already in existence for the rest of the UK.
The bill would have serious adverse effects on the operation of the Equality Act 2010. And as I've set out in my correspondence with the First Minister yesterday, I would prefer not to be in this situation. The United Kingdom Government does all we can to respect the devolution settlement and to resolve disputes. It is open to the Scottish Government to bring back an amended bill for reconsideration in the Scottish Parliament.
And finally, climate activist Greta Thunberg has been filmed being detained again during climate protests in Germany. The 20-year-old was escorted away by police officers after taking part in demonstrations against the expansion of an open-pit coal mine sited in the west of Germany. It follows protests over the weekend, with German police saying investigations have been launched against 150 separate people following violent clashes. The protesters say Germany should be using more renewable energy instead of mining for more fossil fuels. The German government said it remains committed to phasing out the use of coal by 2030. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, the People's Channel. And now on your box, it's Laurence Fox.
We spend much of our time moaning about the millennials and the emerging Generation Z for their celebration of victimhood, puritanical levels of moral supremacy, and their love of cancelling anyone who doesn't agree with them, combined with a visceral hatred of free speech. But you know what? The more time that passes, the more I'm starting to feel compassion for them, rather than just a weary anger. The reason for this may have something to do with a small revelation I had over the Christmas period. I found myself feeling very down, following a difficult end to last year for me. These fortunately rare black dogs affect most of us, I'm sure, at some time or another, and having been there before, I'm blessed to have found a few simple curatives which help shut down a debilitating cycle of panic attacks and anxiety. I have tried pills of various descriptions and prescriptions, some of which worked for a while, all of which made me feel worse after a while. Obviously, this is just my experience. If medication works for you, then more power to you. But for me, the main things that make the grey go away are running or fishing. And that's pretty rich coming from someone who, in their 20s and 30s, spent a good few mornings leaning out the window, chain smoking, still doing that, after a heavy night trying to work out why these idiots were running around the park like a herd of mindless wildebeest. But now, with a few more years under my belt and a few more scars, I know that for me, when my mental health takes a dive, it's time to dust off the running shoes or find a riverbank. Now, I say this because I think how much simpler life was before the invention of this, and how much easier it was to switch the world off just for a while to revive yourself and restore. But this thing, this is a dopamine factory, and huge numbers of us, including me, are plugged in for far too long every day and hooked on the surges of serotonin it provides. Social media, email, WhatsApp, any meaningless hit we can find, which is why I do actually feel sorry for the generation which is coming after ours. Suicide rates between 15 and 24-year-old young men increased by 45% between 2007 and 2017, and for young women, 87%. It's horrifying. And that's before we even embarked on this insane public health experiment we're now trying to claw our way out of. These young people have been bombarded from day one with fear, fear, fear. The vast majority of it confected or dreamt up for clicks, likes, hates, and comments. And now, as society begins to try and balance and refocus following the COVID hysteria, they haven't even got a minute to gather themselves before being bombarded by the sun monster and the climate emergency, which is going to burn them all to dust anyway. No wonder they're anxious and rudderless, if they are the generation who will have to face the apocalypse, which we, our generation, and our forebears created for them. No wonder they're angry. No wonder they don't want to have kids. No wonder they don't have time to talk things through. No wonder they are depressed. No wonder they feel like victims. No wonder they don't want to get drunk and have one-night stands. It's been left to them to save the world. And the rest of us can shut up or get out of the way. And when they're not contemplating the end of days, they're told that up is down, left is right, white boys are bad and privileged above all others, whether they have two pennies to rub together or not. The digital age is torturing these young minds into a mental health crisis, made all the worse by the catastrophic policies of the last surreal 2 years. There are no running shoe cures for them. They have no time to stand and stare. Everything must be done yesterday. They have a planet to save. Which brings me on to fishing. One of my other tricks to dodge the black dog is to find myself a quiet weir pool or a riverbank, create a simple rig, attach a hook with a blood knot, bait the hook, cast out into the burbling water and wait for the end of the rod to twitch or the float to slip under the surface, a sign that a fish of unknown size has taken an interest in the trap. I set it, me, Tarzan. For a sport which involves an awful lot of sitting around eating sandwiches, it is remarkably thrilling. In countries across the world, there are programs to get kids and young people in difficult circumstances out on the water, in nature, fishing, and the effect on their well-being is profound. And yet, our very own rivers and waterways in the UK are becoming ever more polluted. The River Wye, where I caught a specimen barbel, by the way, has been heavily polluted by industrial poultry farms nearby and by the products of intensive farming. This magnificent piece of water is slowly dying, and with it, one of Mother Nature's own beautiful antidepressants, switching off, sitting still, and taking in the wonders of nature. And to the younger generation, we are sympathetic to the desires of you idealists to change the world, but I think perhaps you might feel less fearful if you were encouraged to change the world around you first, starting with little victories. It's all very well lying in the street, stopping traffic or smashing windows or throwing soup on masterpieces, but if you won't achieve anything other than upsetting people whose support you need the most. Now, if you really wanted to get us on your side, give yourself a break from this doom grooming. How about find yourself your nearest waterway? Spend some time there. Maybe clean it up a bit. I bet the public would applaud you for that. And then one day, if you can bring yourself to have children, you can take them down the river to fish. Or you just carry on listening to the lies of those who sit smug and reclined in their private jets, flying from summit to summit, telling you that it's you, not them, who is destroying the planet. But first, I'm going to ask you, do you think we have let down the next generation? Email me your views at gbnews.uk or tweet me at Laurence Fox. The public order bill has caused a huge division across all parties, splitting those who believe the right to peaceful protest and those who believe more should be done to stop public disruptions, like the ones we've seen caused by climate activists, Just Stop Oil, and also us lot who didn't like the lockdowns. Anyway, never mind. The changes introduced yesterday will broaden the legal definition of serious disruption, giving the police greater flexibility to essentially define what constitutes serious disruption as they please. Yeesh. This creates a legal grey area which effectively creates pre-crime for peaceful protests. Whatever your opinions on climate extremism and the way they protest, very few can deny that peaceful protests have been a crucial part of progress in this country. The suffragettes chained themselves to the railings of Westminster for the right of women to vote. The right to peaceful assembly and the right to protest are key pillars of our society. But is vandalising buildings and historically significant art, blocking and gluing people to integral road networks, really as justified as peaceful? Here to discuss this with me is Just Stop Oil climate activist Alex de Koning. Good evening, Alex.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me.
I think we're on the same side here. What do you think?
I think about a lot of the issues we are, yes, and I think about a lot of the issues in general. A lot of people are, but there's still so much that divides us, and our government is trying to use that division in order to make sure that nothing gets done. But a lot of us want change. We want better. We want our energy bills to be lower. We want more renewable energy for most people, over 77%. We want our houses to be insulated, and yet these are exactly the kind of things our corrupt politicians are refusing to do. And they're trying to make it harder for people to speak up, to do anything about it, to criticize them. I think it's disgusting.
Do you think that there should be a limit to any form of protest? I mean, do you think criminal damage is going to get the public on side, though? Or slowing people down on their way to work?
I think that protests like that are entirely proportional with what we're facing, because sadly, what we're facing is the extinction of the human race. There was 33 million people in Pakistan who got displaced by floods. It was 40-degree weather here in the UK, so hot that crops got set on fire. We lost half of our potato crop last year and a third of our wheat crop. This year, because of the reservoirs not filling up because of drought, we're predicted to have our entire fruit and vegetable supply chain on the brink of collapse. It's 2023 and this is already happening. What's going to happen in 2033? I think it's a terrifying thought. So we need to be doing everything we can in order to speak up and make sure that our corrupt politicians are not subsidizing the fossil fuel industry anymore, and instead we're switching to renewable energies and making sure our energy bills are as low as possible. It could be 9 times lower if we had renewables.
I do support people's right to protest. I think it's an absolutely amazing thing, but I'm protesting for something, which is my liberties, for example, over lockdowns. It seems to me that you're protesting against something. Now, can you tell me, is there any good news coming out of Just Stop Oil that you can tell us about the planet?
There is a lot of good news, but in all honesty, it's a little bit meaningless if we're still trying to open up these over 100 new fossil fuel licenses. Everything else is kind of mopping up with the tap open. But the good news is that we have a lot of solutions. We could be insulating homes, subsidizing public transport, taxing the big oil and gas companies, using tidal power, using energy storage for green hydrogen and other things. There's a lot of solutions out there. They're just all being ignored. I'm a climate scientist myself, but what we do as scientists means nothing if the government's not willing to implement it.
There would be some, though, that would say that certainly something like electric vehicles use up so much more of Mother Nature's wonderful resources than a fossil fuel car anyway, so they're actually much dirtier than a fossil fuel produced car. Do you have any words for the children in Congo who are mining the cobalt there?
We're just stop oil. We're not just start electric cars. We think that there needs to be.
But once you've just stopped oil, so, sorry to interrupt you. Once you've just stopped oil, what do people just walk?
Public transport. It's cheap. If it was made more accessible to a lot more people, why on earth wouldn't we use that?
Which cobalt you're talking about?
Public transport.
Public transport. Well, you can't get people shouldn't be forced onto public transport. People should have the autonomy. We're in 2023, the autonomy to go from one house to not everyone lives in a city. It's madness. What about a lady who lives in the middle of the countryside?
Far more accessible public transport that could help with everything. Why wouldn't we be having better train services that are subsidised? Why wouldn't we be having more frequent buses? These are all easily implementable things.
I don't know about you. I live in London, and I drive past a bus lane with 8 buses in it, and I often see less than 8 people in all 8 buses combined. So it seems to me there is a lot of public transport out there. It also seems to me that human beings, like the independents, to turn around and go, well, I want to go from A to B, and I want to do it on my own time, in my own way, when I choose to do it, and in a method I choose to do it, listening to the music I want to do it in. Why should we, in 2023, turn around and take away something that was a human right in 1950?
I'm not trying to take away your cars. I'm just saying that public transport could be subsidized and it could be far more improved. For example, in Germany, they had €9 for an entire month of public transport, and everybody started taking more public transport, because why wouldn't they? Oil prices and petrol prices are insanely high, and this also saved 18 million tons of carbon dioxide, more than all of the cars in Germany. Why wouldn't we be doing that? It's a no-brainer. A lot of what we're trying to suggest in Just Stop Oil are no-brainers. Why wouldn't we want our homes insulated and our energy bills lower?
Well, on a personal level, if you're asking why wouldn't we, I would say that I wouldn't want young slave-laboured African Congolese children to have to mine the batteries of virtue signallers. Anyway, I really hope you stop, and it's lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much for joining me, Alex de Koning.
Come join us on April 21st.
Right, coming up, former MEP Ben Habib will join me as the UK and the EU continue negotiations over the Northern Ireland Protocol. Don't go anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere either.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back. Whilst many of us look back at Brexit as a fond memory of the past, for one particular region of the UK, it remains a very serious problem. The Northern Ireland Protocol has siphoned off part of the United Kingdom and surrendered it to the European Union. Our politicians continue to dither and squabble, as per usual, over retained EU laws. Sunak vowed to scrap them within 100 days of taking office, and that day is coming fast, but it seems that he has put that pledge on the back burner. In 2016, this country said goodbye to the European Union once and for all. And yet here we are in 2023, and it remains a problem that seems to never go away. Why would that be? Well, because it was the public who forced our leaders over the line in the greatest democratic exercise this country has ever seen. Our leaders never wanted this to happen, and it feels like they don't want it now. My next guest has said that the Prime Minister may know the price of things, but he has no grasp of their value. Former MEP Ben Habib joins me now. Ben, when is Brexit going to happen?
Well, that's a really good question. And as I was coming in here, a friend of mine texted me saying that, you know, the mood on Instagram, I'm not on Instagram, but apparently the mood on Instagram, I'm not on Instagram, but the mood on Instagram is that Brexit's failed, it's going to be reversed soon. And I completely forgive anyone who thinks that Brexit has failed. Because if you look at the constitutional rigmarole we've been through over the last 7 years, and we still haven't got it done. But as you rightly said, Laurence, it's our governing class, our political class, that has refused steadfastly to get this very simple project over the line. All we had to do was genuinely leave the European Union. And again, as you said at the beginning of your intro to me, you know, Northern Ireland has been left behind in the European Union. It's part of the EU customs union. It's part of the EU single market for goods. That means it's a rule taker. Laws are made for Northern Ireland in Brussels, foisted on it, and then those laws are adjudicated by a foreign court. What sort of country gives over part of its territory to a foreign power? And that's what we've done.
It seems like traitorousness to me, because this Conservative Party would not be in power if it weren't for the DUP.
No.
Properly. And so is it too hyperbolic to say that?
No, it's absolutely right. The DUP and Sir Geoffrey Donaldson in particular have been exemplary. They've had to fight for the existential threat that the protocol poses to the United Kingdom. No provincial politician should be forced into that corner. But, you know, Laurence, I know you fight a lot of the culture wars, you fight for the reclamation of our language. The ultimate in political weakness is giving up part of the country without a single shot being fired. So when you fight for the reclamation of the English language, you're fighting for the union of the United Kingdom. You're fighting for British values. When you fight our cultural wars, you're fighting for British values. When you fight to protect the heritage of the United Kingdom, you're fighting for British values. When you fight to reclaim Churchill from those who would denigrate his historical significance, you're fighting for British values. And when I fight for the Northern Ireland Protocol, I am fighting for the United Kingdom. It's all part of the same fight. Our political leaders have turned their back on the United Kingdom. They've turned their back on the importance of an independent, sovereign UK, proud of its history, proud of its values, proud of its tradition, going forth as an independent country, making laws and policies for the benefit of British citizens. That's what they've turned their back on.
Okay.
So Sunak is a great accountant, great bean counter, but he does not value any of that. And we've got to fight for it. We've got to stand up to people like Sunak and reclaim, that's your word, reclaim the United Kingdom.
Who is Sunak, this unelected man? Anyway, right, I'm not allowed to cheer out loud, so I have to. I need to respond with the thing. Why have we stolen a bit of Ireland?
Why have we stolen a bit of Ireland?
Why don't we just give it back to
It was never theirs.
It was never theirs?
It was never theirs.
Okay.
Ireland was ours. All of Ireland was ours. And all of Ireland joined Great Britain to create the United Kingdom in 1800. And in 1922, part of Ireland was then ceded to the Republic. And the Republic has had its beady eyes on Northern Ireland ever since. And the EU, with its malignant intent towards Great Britain and the United Kingdom, thought, oh, well, that's a really good political battle to fight, because we can then get a gaff. You know what a gaff is? You fish, don't you? A gaff is a really filthy instrument. You chuck it into the side of a big fish to try and control it and bring it on board. The Northern Ireland Protocol is a gaff into the flesh of the United Kingdom. That's what it is. It's to ensure that either the United Kingdom comes to heel and we, as a United Kingdom, start taking EU laws so that border down the Irish Sea becomes invisible, or we lose Northern Ireland.
And why is it so difficult? Why is it so hard to come to a deal with these people? You know, you go into... I've looked at the red lane, the green lane and all this stuff. You know,
it's all nonsense.
But you land in Heathrow Airport, you go through the red lane or the green lane. I always go through the green lane.
That's a different kind of red lane and green lane.
Do you know what I mean? It's not the world's most complicated thing.
No.
We're either on side and we're a union or we're not. I don't understand why all these years later it's still a problem.
But you know, you're absolutely right. It's very simple. All we need is a governing class, a political class, that has confidence in the United Kingdom and its ability to govern. And the border should go where a border already exists, which separates Northern Ireland from the Republic, separates two different currencies, separates two different corporation tax rates, separates two different sets of regulations. That border is recognised in the Good Friday Agreement. That's where the customs border should be. The trade across that border, by the way, is de minimis. It's less than 1% of the trade between the United Kingdom and the EU. It's a rounding error. And yet we have allowed the EU to weaponise that border issue against the United Kingdom.
But we live in a world of non-jobs, right? So, you know, non-trade, and we live in a world of non-power. So someone exerting this power over a region it seems to be ridiculous. But surely the British people want to be free of this. And we want to be able to exercise our passive rights rather than the active rights that are given to us by Europe. We want to find our own identity post-Brexit.
We do.
We're not able to do it.
We do. And that's why the Northern Ireland Protocol is actually not just an issue for Northern Ireland. It's an issue for the entire United Kingdom. We're being held down. That's why I describe it as a gaff in our flesh. They've wounded us deeply with this wretched instrument that they've driven into the flesh of the United Kingdom. And our political class needs to get a grip. It's actually...
Do they want to get a grip? Do they care at all?
Well, but this is where I come back to Rishi Sunak being a bean counter and understanding the price of everything and the value of nothing. What are we? What are we, Laurence? What do we stand for if we're not prepared to stand up for the rights of 1.8 million British citizens, part of the United Kingdom? You know, 40 years ago, we had the 40-year anniversary for the Falklands last year. 40 years ago, we mobilised our entire armed forces to protect 1,800 people, 10,000 sheep, 8,000 miles away. Now we've given up sovereign British territory, part of the United Kingdom, without a single shot being fired. It is the biggest collapse in political will of our lifetime. And it is the ultimate, if you like, in the battle that you and I have been fighting from different ends. You know, it's the ultimate in losing our language, the ultimate in losing our history, our traditions, our values, our laws, giving up part of our country without a single shot being fired.
Everything feels like surrender at the moment.
It is surrender.
Thank you so much, Ben Habib, for sitting on the fence. Coming up, we're going to hear from one of my favourite people in the entire world about one of the most British subjects around, fishing. Please don't go anywhere.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, this is the People's Channel, so let's channel the people. I asked you, because mental health in young people is declining, have we let the next generation down? Julie says, the young only know fear and not freedom. It's our duty to take them into forests, oceans and lakes to find some peace. I just so agree. Kids, I've got my own kids, and it's just they're so much happier outside, but they're always glued to their things inside their iPads and various. Anyway, Andrea says, all messages from all sources seem to promote learned helplessness. So not only the future generations, but society currently. That's interesting. Learned helplessness. I haven't thought about that. I don't really think about that. Thank you, Andrea. Ken says, think these people need to start drinking red wine and do something that will allow them to survive. You'll always have my vote, chum. Sue says, I think the last couple of generations have a lack of resilience, which helps with coping mechanisms. Not sure how it happened. Well, we were asleep on the job, I think. David says, it's not just the younger generation that's been let down. No, every generation has been let down in the last couple of years. I'll tell you that for free. Right. Whilst I may not be an eco-warrior, like our earlier guest, Alex, I am an environmentalist. actually. I spend a lot of my time in nature when I was younger, and spending time there can't be understated. It does wonders for your mental health. Even on an individual level, we can do our bit for preserving the ecosystem. One particularly concerning headline from the past few days, which has been largely ignored, has been the troubling numbers of salmon deaths in Scottish farms from past year. Many have blamed parasites, jellyfish, growing levels of disease, but something fishy could be going on. Could this be the product of over-farming? It's worth remembering we only do have one planet after all, one environment, and one change to the ecosystem can have disastrous consequences. A report recently showed that only 40% of English rivers meet ecological status. How on earth can that be the case in 2023? One man who knows more about this than practically anyone else is my absolute hero, Matt Hayes, lifelong fisherman. Matt, good evening. It's so wonderful to speak to you.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's great to be on. Thanks.
Matt, 14% of rivers meeting standards. Can you just talk? You know what to tell us. Talk to us about the waters.
Well, it's pretty shocking. And in fact, the figures that you've quoted are pretty much assessed by the government themselves. So, you know, they're pretty accurate. During my lifetime, and I've been fishing since the 1960s, I've spent as much time by the water as possible. And quite frankly, the state of our rivers and our coast, by the way, is the worst that I've ever seen it. And it's a multi-pronged attack. Part of it is due to urbanisation and increasing pressure on our water resources, greater amounts of effluent discharges, you know, building on the floodplains of rivers has dramatic consequences, the increase in the population, but also intensive agricultural methods are now over-enriching our rivers and causing a different type of pollution, as is the establishment of certain industries along the banks of some of our wonderful waterways. A prime example being the River Wye, which is an icon among fishing rivers. It's the ultimate fishing river. It's a great game fishing river if you like the fly, but boy, is it a great coarse fishing river as well. It's the river of your dreams. And right now, it's being, parts of it are flowing with a mixture of chicken effluent and agricultural discharge. And the problem is that no one seems to be able to stop this mess.
And it would seem to me that with these sort of spiralling protests of like, we've got to save the entire planet, that maybe it would give people confidence and also better mental health opportunities to find their nearest bit of waterway and to really take care of it. What have you noticed as a lifelong fisherman about what fishing can do to bring people closer together and improve their mental health?
If I spoke about the benefits of fishing, I'd be on here all night, and you haven't got time for that. But let's just hit some of the most important ones. There's a spirituality to fishing. You can pick up a fishing rod and feel nothing, or you can pick up a fishing rod and find that you've just found the key to your universe. It's like Marmite. You either love it or you hate it, and you find out very quickly. Now, fishing is something that's been going on since very prehistoric times, so it's something that's kind of innate in us. But in a modern society, which is so fast-moving and digitally enhanced, this is a very analog in the main part, and there's a lot of texture to it. It's the Americans actually class fishing as a gateway sport. What do they mean by that? They put loads of money into it. Basically, they see it as a very good way of bringing large numbers of people into contact with nature that wouldn't necessarily go there in the first place. And of course, as the people who fish who are watching this know, the mental peace that you can achieve with fishing, as well as the thrill, the exhilaration, the chance for reflection, spirituality, peace, balance. It is a healing balm. And, you know, you can have all the debates in the world about, you know, is fishing a harmful thing? Do fish feel pain, etc.? The fact of the matter is that the huge benefits of fishing, not only to society and to people, but also to fish, because anglers really are the policemen of the waterways. And so we're living in unique times, and it's time for anglers to stand up and be counted. But I'll tell you who else we ally with. Do you know the people that report the most pollutions? Dog walking women. So I'm right there with you. I want our waterways cleaned up. And I'll tell you what I'm fed up with. I'm fed up with the fact that no one in authority seems to have any passion for the subject. I'd like to say to the people, if anyone's watching this, who has some influence over the state of our rivers, you've got a responsibility. You're very privileged. We're trusting with you with something that's part of our heritage. And no one seems to want to get to the bottom of this problem and stop the discharge of effluent into our rivers and around our coast. It's disgraceful.
Yeah, I really resonates with me what you're saying. You know, what is this life if full of care we have no time to stand and stare? There's nothing like just watching little float bobbing down a river. You're running a fishing area in Norway, and are you seeing young people coming into fishing still? Is it still being passed from father to son? Is there hope?
Yeah, there's always hope. And in fact, you know, there's a lot of good things about fishing for the younger generation, but we've got to find different ways of getting them into fishing. The great thing about fishing is it's a gift for life, right? I started fishing when I was 3 years old, and, you know, I'll be virtually dead before I put the rod down. You're right that nowadays I run a very successful fishing lodge on the banks of one of the world's great Atlantic salmon rivers, which is the Gaula River in Norway. And along with my wife, Anna Marie, and our kids, we run the Wind's Nest Fly Fishing Lodge. And I've been here now for almost 20 years. And just looking after my bit of the river, which is about 4 kilometres, is a great privilege. Living here in Norway is a great privilege. But my grassroots is still in the UK, Laurence. I grew up on the banks of the River Severn and fishing the Staffordshire-Worcester Canal. My first fishing experience was fishing for sticklebacks in Edgbaston Reservoir when I was a kid. And eventually, when I followed my dreams, I ended up fishing for some of the world's greatest game fish in some of the world's greatest game fishing destinations. So fishing for me has been much more than something that's always allowed me to keep myself together, because I've always been a bit edgy. I'm, you know, renowned for that. But fishing is my balancer. It's where I put things right in my head. And as far as the young generation goes, listen, whatever sex, politics, denomination, institution, religion, background, height, weight, colour, don't matter. You're welcome to come fishing. And I'll tell you something else as well. A lot of the problems that we've got in society, particularly things that I read about like knife crime, particularly in London, let me take a few of those kids fishing. It won't sort them all out, but it will sort some of them out. The therapeutic benefits of fishing and the opportunity to do something which is so primeval and so closely bonded with nature and not digitally enhanced, the benefits, and this has been proven in various research that's been done on behalf of the NHS and other charity organisations, are absolutely enormous. We're talking about therapy on a major level. There is no such thing as a bad kid. They are what we make of them. They are what we put into them. And I've been involved in taking fishing. Kids who've not even seen grass, born in the centre of London and things like that. So I know the power of fishing in people's life. And I know that it is still popular. But the old model of when we had grandfathers and fathers taking people fishing, as I did when I was a lad, that's not so common now. Laurence, I'd like to refer you to
Matt,
a fabulous organisation.
What's great, Matt, is that you've just delivered the reason why I love fishing, which is fishing is philosophy. It gives you time to sit and think about nature, and it gives you time to sit and think about the wondrousness of your sort of hunter-gatherer past and all of these things. And I just want to say an enormous thank you to you, because I've been watching you forever, and the Duke, and I love fishing. And it's cured, it's made so many personal problems I've had so much better. And thank you so much, and see you soon, I hope, very much.
Laurence, it's been a pleasure. Can I ask anyone who's interested in this subject to follow Fergal Sharkey on Twitter and also the Angling Trust? If you want to support clean rivers, join the Angling Trust and support Fish Legal. Thank you.
Amen. Right, thank you so much, Matt Hayes. Coming up, David Starkey and the butchering of our constitution. We will be back in 3.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Welcome back. Yesterday, the government decided for the first time that they'd invoke powers under the Scotland Act to block legislation, particularly their controversial Gender Recognition Act. Nicker of the North has howled and moaned, and many suspect this is going to go to the Supreme Court. But what does this story really point to? Devolution? Supreme Court? These are all the ghastly inventions of New Labour. The mere fact that we refer to Holyrood as the Scottish Parliament is constitutional heresy. Same with the idea of the Supreme Court. The legacy of New Labour isn't the amendment of Clause 4, it isn't the Iraq War, and it isn't even immigration. It's the complete dismantling of our constitution. But don't take my word for it. Dr. David Starkey is here. Take it away, David, please.
You're feeling it's a bit heavy. Are you breathing on all those abstract nouns? Can I just remind you of the terrific discussion you had with Ben Habib? Fundamentally, this is the same issue. It is that we have dealt over the last 30 years with an abandonment of the fundamentals of not simply the history of the United Kingdom, that since the beginning of the 18th century with the union with Scotland, but what has been the fundamental thread of English history, which is freedom under the law and the collective decisions of the people binding everybody because everybody is represented in Parliament. That's been the way we've done things since roughly yet more depth, yet more big thoughts since the coronation oath of 1308. And progressively, we've decided no, but we haven't decided. It's been decided for us. And what this issue has done is the issue that we're talking about now, the issue of the Gender Recognition Act, Scotland's unilateral decision to say that, you know, when you're waking up one morning and you feel you've got gender dysphoria, and, you know, I suddenly feel that my inner spirit is that of a woman, even though I've even more facial hair than you and a powerfully hairy chest and, you know, and unlike Prince Harry, a working todger, nevertheless, because I feel I am a woman, I am a woman. So Scotland has unilaterally decided you can effectively decide that for yourself pretty much when you like. And what that, of course, raises is the question, if you're a woman in Scotland and a man in England, it really does make our little dispute over, you know, sausages going, as it were, sausages going across the Irish frontier look very small beer, doesn't it?
I hadn't thought of that.
That's what it actually... This is what...
You're a woman in Scotland, you're a man in England.
That's right.
Wow.
And indeed, some very clever Scots, because they used to be very clever Scots, have decided that it would actually make life easier if you could be simultaneously a man and a woman, depending on which particular bit of the law fits you best. This is a nonsense. This is an absurdity that we're driven by constitutional corruption on the one hand and wokery on the other. And they all come together. But they all come together because of what was done between 1997 and 2010. They come together, above all, because of the catastrophic influence, oddly, of Scots. In particular, Gordon Brown. In particular, you know, Donald Dewar, the father of the nation. This absurd notion that by giving Scots just short of independence, you would stop independence. Giving the Scots something that you call a parliament, which doesn't quite have the powers of a parliament. Giving Scotland the right to determine its own future separate from England. I mean, what is truly astonishing is that the referendum, which is what it was, that created this quasi-independent Scotland, was purely within Scotland. So you'd already effectively conceded the notion of the Scots as a separate people. You'd already undone union.
No, you didn't have the man who was a woman in Scotland who came to England voting for the Scottish referendum anyway. So we'd created a partition. But is it like giving in to a bully, constantly giving in? I think it's
the problem now is, of course, that the government of Scotland no longer has a government. You have a perpetual campaign for independence. If you actually look at what the Scott Nats have done in the Scottish Assembly as the government of Scotland, it is a catastrophe. The NHS Scotland is in even worse state than NHS England, which is saying a huge amount. The calibre of an educational system that was genuinely the envy of the world has been systematically destroyed. The drug problems of Glasgow, we can continue. For the simple reason that the actual day-to-day business of government has been abandoned in favour of a perpetual campaign for a second referendum for independence. And I think it shows what happens when you actually forget the purpose of politics. That the purpose of politics, odd isn't it, is to govern well.
Well, there you go. The purpose of politics is to govern well, ladies and gentlemen. You would have thought, wouldn't you? But that would be looking like looking for a needle in a needle stack. Anyway, up next, it is the lovely Dan Wootton. Dan, what have you got for us this evening?
Hello, Laurence. Great to see you. Well, we're going to be continuing this discussion about the situation in Scotland with Sharon Davies. She has very strong views on it. And while you've been on air, Laurence, extraordinary scenes on the British Bashing Corporation, which has been sabotaged. Gary Lineker has been sabotaged with someone playing X-rated sounds live during their football coverage. So we're going to find out what that's all about. And plus, you're going to be sticking around, aren't you?
For my sins. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. It's Dan coming up after the break. Don't miss it.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join me, Laurence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, it appears Rishi Sunak may have finally grown a spine by stepping up to the front line of the war on women.